call the meeting to order. We're a little short. Terrific traffic problems on Ulmerton, so we may have some stragglers coming in.
Oh, Brian's got it, so he will not be.
Okay. All right. So I will ask for public comment. I have one card. Mr. Phil Compton, would you care to say a few words?
Sure, and I'll make it brief. Good morning, everyone. Over the last year, you've heard us and other folks talk a lot about bus technology and new types of buses that you might have. We really appreciate all the work that's been done, all the time that's been given by staff and the board in considering this. Sierra Club and lots of folks in this community support PSTA for a lot of reasons, and one of those is that you and your daily duties help us reduce our dependence on oil. The folks who would drill for oil off our beaches and have no regard whatsoever for this county's $6 billion tourism economy are still out there. And you have done your share, you have done your part. And now you can do more. With progress that's been made recently, you can do more than you've been doing. We think it's extremely appropriate, entirely appropriate, that the funds that were given to this county to make up for the economic losses suffered 6 years ago a portion of that would be allocated to this agency. Goodness knows, there is no agency in this county that deserves support more than PSTA does. And goodness knows, there's no other purpose that could be more appropriate than to help this agency make the transition to moving away from its own consumption of the oil that was in the Gulf of Mexico 6 years ago, which is still there, by the way. So if you're on the county commission, we urge you to support this very appropriate use of those particular funds for this purpose. And if you're not, talk to those who are. We are going to be doing the same thing. We think it is time now to take this step. And as luck would have it, Providence, whatever, we now are in a position where we can take this step forward. We support Commissioner Welch's initiative, his suggestion to the Board of County Commissioners that PSTA be in receipt of such funds, because with that, the electric bus option becomes the cheapest, the most cost-effective, the best way to invest your funds going forward. This can really help. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move to our action items. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes, and are there any additions or corrections?
Move approval is issued.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, Henry, you're going to talk to us about wheelchair restraint systems.
Yes, good morning, members of the committee. On page 7 of your packet, we have an action item to recommend the approval of a contract with Gillig LLC for approximately, for $242,000 to replace all of the wheelchair securements and flip-up seats in 46 2002 model buses. I have a graphic here which I will bring up to aid in visualizing this. So I'm actually happy to report that last year we applied for a grant with FDOT and also the FTA under the 5310 program, which is the seniors and individuals with disabilities. And the basis of the project was, in all of our 2006 model buses, we have 46 of them, we have sorry, it would help. It helped to turn it on. Apologies. This is the front of the bus, which is basically where folks with mobility devices are able to be secured when they board the bus. It also doubles, as you can see, as an area when there are no mobility devices to be secured, places for passengers to sit. The basis of the project was to go ahead and replace the flip-up seat on the passenger side along with this barrier, along with the driver's side barrier and flip-up seat. And this is what it looks like when it's flipped down. Reasoning behind this was we wanted to upgrade the securement area with new straps, new restraints, and also after 10 years of these seats being flipped up and down over and over, they have become worn out. After the project is completed, this will be essentially what the new equipment will look like. As you can see, the barrier has been replaced along with the flip-up seats on the right side. A barrier has been added along with another set of flip-up seats on the right side. And here's what they look like flipped down. So all new equipment in this area. One thing I want to mention is that currently, if you can see in this picture, this is a flip-up seat that has 2 seats. The new equipment will have 3 seats, so we actually add an additional seat. Last time we presented it to the track committee, and several members did ask about they had concerns about if this extra seat being added and potentially losing an area where folks could store a shopping cart or a stroller or what have you. That is something that we're going to look at. Rest assured, there are other avenues that we can make available to store such shopping carts or folding strollers. And I will actually get in touch with some other colleagues in the transit business across the country to see how they have dealt with the same issues in terms of that. The track committee did end up unanimously approving the approval to go ahead with the project. As is typical, our procurement team did put this out for an invitation for bid. We received 2 responses, which is from Prevost and Gillig. The procurement and maintenance staff did go through, evaluated the proposals, and Gillig LLC was selected based off lowest cost. As I mentioned before, this is part of a grant. So on page 8, you can see how the apportionments are broken down. The total cost of the project is $242,000, of which PSTA will be responsible for just 10% of the project, which is about $24,000. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions, anyone? Yes.
I guess
Commissioner Johnson?
we have 46 2006 buses. That's because we had the earmark,
Yeah.
and we're able to buy that number of buses, which is the bubble that we're coming up against in 21, something like that. Okay.
Anybody else? Questions? I just had a question with regard to where this will be done. Is Gillig coming here? Are we shipping the buses out? How is that going to work?
Great question. The PSTA maintenance staff is qualified to perform these installations ourselves. There is money left in this project of the grant to potentially look at outsourcing it. And that's not out of the question. Right now, we just wanted to go ahead and get the parts on order. So we're going to come back and look at that. It could be either way, but there is money to go ahead and outsource it if needed.
Okay. And where is it, Gillig Depot or wherever, if that were to be done?
The buses wouldn't, well, Gillig is based out of California.
Right.
We wouldn't send it to Gillig. They would probably either send folks here to do it on site, or there are some aftermarket, such as Coach Crafters out in Winter Haven that specialize in this type of work.
All right. Do I hear a motion?
Just real quick.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah, the buses since then that we've purchased, since the 06s, are they designed differently?
Great question. This is actually what all new buses look like coming in today. So
Okay.
all new buses will have this exact same layout.
This will take care of the buses that we have the problem with. That's it, that'll be it. We don't have any other ones? Are they?
We do have all of our 2005, 7s, 8s, and 9s. We actually applied to do most of them. We were not awarded all of the funding we requested. So we had just enough to do the 46 2006s, which is the second largest sub-fleet that we have. So it's a majority of the older ones that we're getting.
You said that also on 07 and 09 as well?
Right, so 2007 model, 8 model, 9 model.
All have the same problem?
Right, it's not a problem, it's just we're trying to go back and uplift our equipment.
So the
because they
question
are-
is, why wouldn't we do these to the newer ones?
We are
They're gonna
doing
be,
it.
huh?
We order all new buses to look like this. So
No,
all
but
new-
Henry, why aren't we going to retrofit the 2009s and 10s? which
Because
will
the
have
6s
longer-
are gonna be gone sooner than the other
Yeah.
ones. So why are we gonna quote, and I don't mean waste money, but you know what I'm saying. Why don't we spend it so it'll last longer on the newer buses rather than the 06s that have a much shorter life now?
We still have several years to go before the 06s are completely retired. So we decided that since this was the largest fleet second largest fleet, well, no, actually it's the largest model year fleet that's out on the road today, that we go ahead and perform these upgrades. The good part of this is the fact that we can actually take this equipment out as we retire the buses and transplant it to other buses as needed.
Still not, that's good to know, but I'm still not understanding why we're not doing it to the newer, older buses that will have an extra 3 years of life left on, so we don't have to make that switch later, unless you're hoping to continue to get grants.
I was going to say the 07s and 09s have had more, I think, maintenance issues than the 06s. Is that correct?
That's partially true, yes. It's a great question. We just decided that since there are more of these buses on the road right now, out of any of all the other buses, for example, the 07s, there's only 20 of them.
Right.
The 08s, there's only 20. These are on the road every day, so we just decided to get the maximum benefit of what's on the road in terms of just quantity, that this was the best decision.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson.
I thought I understood, but now I have more questions. Can you go back to the before picture?
Yes, sir.
And there's a panel on the right top, well, I mean, that's there. What's different about that panel versus the new panel?
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. These were actually seats that also flipped down.
Oh, okay.
The new style has a barrier that's put in instead of flip-up seats. What has happened was nowadays it is recommended, as wasn't before previously when 2006 was around, that there are now two barriers in front of these two forward-facing seats. So that is what's different.
And the barriers were installed in what model year, 2010?
The manufacturer started recommending barriers be installed in approximately 2014, late year 2014.
So all of our other buses don't have these barriers as well?
That is why what we've done and what was done in the past several years ago was these seats are permanently placed up. They cannot be lowered down. So in effect, this is acting as a barrier and has been such the case for 4 or 5 years now.
Henry, is it possible to use this to go ahead and order this equipment and analyze whether it could be placed on newer than 2006 buses that have the same problem, or is it specific equipment that can only be used on 2006 Gillig models?
It could be used in all of the years that were mentioned, 2006 on up to 2009.
Well, what would you say to the idea that we would analyze this a little bit further and see if we could place this new equipment on 46, 46 of our youngest,
Absolutely.
oldest buses.
Absolutely.
Or the ones that are going to be the most used in the future in our service.
Absolutely, we sure can do
And-
that.
Okay,
We can do that, absolutely.
okay.
Then I would make a motion to support. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to say something on the grant side of it. When we did apply for the grant, it was put in for the 2006s, and that's what was approved. So before we would be able to, once we analyzed it, before we would be able to make the change, we would just have to approach FDOT and get approval.
And so I'm comfortable making the motion that we move in the direction of the newer ones pending FDOT approval.
Concurrence, yeah.
Is there a possibility we can get more funds for the 2006 and 2009s, or is it possibility we can do this again?
Yeah, every year we apply for more money through this source, and every year we hope that we get approved. So yes, the answer to your question.
Okay, so if we did the earlier, the later ones, then we can do the other ones
Yeah.
another time. Thank you.
Or we may be getting closer to replacement anyway on some of those.
Yeah.
06s, or did you say 18 or 19? Oh, you said 20, right? For the 06s,
Yeah, well, we have 46 2006 buses,
and the target date for replacement of those is, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
2021.
Okay. So we'd still have.
You're going to stagger that too, I believe, right? We're not going to do that all at one time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, some of those are going to last a little bit longer.
Right.
Between 2019 and 2023 or 24, we'll be phasing those buses out. But we'll look at it,
We're doing this for safety reasons, right? Which sort of, to me, has a higher priority than, and that's correct.
It's certainly a safety enhancement feature. So we were talking with the track committee, the riders committee, which has a number of folks with mobility, wheelchair type vehicles, services. They had a little discussion about how the older, those red straps are on like a pulley thing, and they wear out, and it's sort of a customer service feature as well, that the operator can quickly and better secure for safety, and also make sure that the person's wheelchair is not messed up. They were talking about not getting scratched and stuff.
And the time it takes the driver to secure a wheelchair takes away from the time that the bus is on the road.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
I think the idea to do this is appropriate. I'd just like to move forward to do it on all of them that need this.
But apparently they try.
As quickly as the funding is available.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Well, and maybe try to figure out how to get more funding or move it or even spend some of our.
But you did say you tried for more this year, and you got what you got. You got.
We tried for another application this year. We were unsuccessful
Right.
with
So
being
you just
awarded
keep
anything for next
making
year. We
those-
keep trying.
Yeah.
Keep trying.
All right, do I hear a motion? It's a little bit complicated, I believe.
Yeah, the motion would be to move forward with the purchase with the idea that we would put them in the newer buses that needed it first, pending a review with FDOT. And
Now, just let me ask you one quick question. That's going to delay this still further. Would that change our motion?
Well, I would think that the ordering is still going to happen. And if we can check with FDOT and they say, no, you applied for 06s, they have to be in 06s, that's not going to take forever. And we just move forward with the 06s.
I do not.
You think it would take time?
I can't imagine FDOT saying,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so what is the motion, please?
The motion would be to approve the purchase of these to be used in the newer buses that are, the newest buses that are requiring this change first, so long as FDOT approves the change in the grant criteria, which was 06, but they're okay with flexibility then.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a second?
Second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, is it
Yes.
something you want on the consent or the action item?
That's,
Yes.
yeah, this is an action item.
But for
For the board meeting
are
next
you-
week,
Okay.
what's the pleasure? What,
I don't want to get we've got a lot of things for the board next week.
So are we recommending consent then?
I would think so. I mean, it's not, the whole board's probably not going to get as into that as we have.
If they do, they can pull it.
Yeah, they can pull
I do think you're right, we have a lot on this.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, folks, on that one. Cassandra Borchers, MPO Transit Planning Grant.
Good morning. This is an annual agreement that we have with the MPO. The MPO receives federal dollars to perform certain planning activities, and in their Unified Work Program, they detail some of the transit planning that needs to take place under their responsibilities and our responsibilities. Over the last 10 plus years, the MPO has allocated $80,000 to PSTA. This money helps support the planning staff in our duties, and you can see on page 33 the list of eligible activities under this participation agreement. As I mentioned, this is an annual allocation that the MPO sends to PSTA. We have, over the last 4 years, every year that I've been here, asked for more than the 80,000. However, we just have to keep asking. So this year, we are again granted $80,000 from the MPO transit planning funds to perform duties related to transit planning at PSTA. Some of those duties include the transit development plan, coordination with the MPO, performance measures, and generally the things that the planning department does. So we are recommending approval of the joint participation agreement between PSTA and the MPO for $80,000.
Questions on that?
Real quick.
Yes.
What, in your opinion, was a more reasonable request that you made? What was your request that you felt was reasonable? I mean, not asking for the moon, but what did you think was
I think an annual increase is reasonable. We have not received any increase since 2005. So I asked for 95 for this year, but they're keeping it at 80. Even if they gave us 85 and increased it incrementally, every year, I would appreciate that.
Other question?
Yeah, this seems like an amazing amount of things that you can do on $80,000.
Well, I don't think we're not asked to complete all of those items. Those are eligible activities.
Okay.
I noticed on page 34, the total for the project is estimated to be around 100,000. So are we going to work with the 80,000 and add 20 of our own? Or are we going to delete some items? Or
Yes.
how's that going to play out?
In the previous pages of the agreement, it details that another 10,000 comes from straight from the DOT, and another match 10,000 comes from PSTA.
Okay.
move approval?
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor?
Is this
Oh, go ahead.
consent or action?
Pardon me?
Consent or the action?
I would say this is consent. Would everybody agree with that?
Pretty straightforward.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the next item is an informational item that our one member of the committee that's not here, Mr. Brian Scott, actually requested, but he called me yesterday and said he was not able to attend today, but had reviewed it, appreciated it, said he was gonna call you, Debbie, I don't know if he did.
Not yet.
But, let's talk about it, but he recommended that we go ahead and present it, and then he would talk with Debbie, but he was very pleased with it.
Okay,
So that's why I'm recommending that, even though Brian's not here, we're still going to.
great, I agree.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
thank
good
you.
morning.
Morning.
We're talking about risky business this morning. My risk department consists of 5 people, 4 that are full-time, 1 that is part-time. All of our adjusters here are licensed in all lines, very experienced in what they do. They are responsible for a number of things. One is, and most important, protecting the assets of PSTA. We take a look anytime something happens to determine the root causes of what goes on, and then based on that, we come up with strategies to help prevent that. We work very closely with the departments that have been affected. We meet on a regular basis with transportation, which is our biggest customer. So we do a lot of data tracking that helps with the process and providing feedback through that data. We're also responsible for all the lines of insurance that we have here. And the question that came up was when we were reviewing the CAFR, the Consolidated Financial Reports, the amount of liability that we had appeared to Mr. Scott to be very high. And so I took a look at it. I didn't think it was high from my experience, but it's always good to compare and benchmark. So we took a look from a metric I actually hadn't looked at the request of Mr. Scott, and that is, what are the claims and judgments based on our revenue mile? So we went back for 3 years, took a look at it. The average for the 3 years actually turns out to be 50 cents per revenue mile. So we went across the bay and spoke with our friends at Hart to see how they were doing. As you can see from the chart, we are doing significantly better than our counterpart across the way. That is excellent news, but what are we doing different? And what we're doing differently is we only pay medical expenses if we're liable. We just don't pay, we just don't settle. We take a look at every footage that comes off the buses. We analyze everything, we look at everything, we argue everything before we ever settle on something. And as I mentioned, we do on a constant basis meet with transportation to review these things and come up with ideas. So that is what we have. Are there any questions?
Okay, Commissioner Johnson?
So just the bottom line here is we are spending $5 or $4.5 million a year on claims.
Correct.
As a
Well, not
result,
spending, but we've got a liability of that amount.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
claims take a while to settle.
or, so this is incurred or outflow during a year,
This is our incurred expenditure. So the liability that sits on the
but
books.
it's during the year rather, because you said something
It's
about
a
3
history.
years.
So every time an incident occurs, you report a liability. Every time as it's maturing, you find out more about it, you either increase the liability or decrease. So it's not a one-year look. It's a look at for that particular year. At the end of this fiscal year, we had $4.5 million worth of claims. And we had $5 million the year before.
So is that the disbursement during the year for claims?
It's just the accumulation of what the liability is.
It is largely,
So
it is
it's
for incidents that have occurred, and the risk management has done a projection and an estimate of how much PSA is going to have to pay in claims based on the accident that happened yesterday. Is not necessarily
And it can
been paid
fluctuate
out.
too,
Right,
I
and
guess.
every time we
Yeah, and those
claim,
changes, estimates can change over
So
time.
what I'm trying to get at is the per revenue mile. The per revenue mile is the miles run in 2015.
correct.
But the judgment balance is over a greater period of time.
Mhm.
So is the claims per revenue mile, is that a,
It was an interesting way to look at it. You know, when we look at things, we look to see, you know, what are our average claim settlements that we're looking at. when every time we pay out a claim, it does go against us. As you can see, we're fairly consistent. Clearly in 2014, we had a larger claim in there that we reserved for.
And HART is using, the numbers for HART is
They're the
using the same logic,
The
whether
same
it's...
logic. So it was an interesting way to look at it.
Okay.
And that's
Sure.
not the, we have two, we calculate claims in two different ways. One is a specific accrual, and the other is just a
We do look at what's
percentage.
paid out. This will change with the payouts. So money goes out, the liability goes down.
Right.
Liability is incurred, liability goes up. And we look at it from a variety of ways. And like I said, we actually drill down into the specific types of incidents that occur so that we say, is there a trend involved in it that we can address? And then the difference between risk and our safety group is the safety is pre-incident in a prevention mode. Once the incident has occurred, it's our job in risk not only to help them identify things, but to try to mitigate our losses through those claims.
Good, Commissioner Edwards?
And so you really, on an accident, your group is making a judgment at that point whether it's likely to be our fault or not.
It is actually SS&T, our safety group, gets involved in that. We also, though, they look at the videos, we look at the videos. So you've got multiple sets of eyes looking at it, and then we can argue the case.
So you could, I mean, I just asked, you know, I was thinking about our benchmarking group that we use,
Mhm.
and I don't know what benchmarking comparisons they use. Maybe they have a different, I don't know. But anyway, I was thinking about the number of accidents per revenue mile would be kind of interesting also. And the number of accidents that you deem us at fault would be interesting, just to
Okay.
see how much interaction we're having, interactions probably, you know, accident action that we're having out there. You know, whether we're at fault or not. But both those numbers would be interesting per mile, just to see how that's stacking up. But that's, you know, you're right, that's an interesting way to look at it.
The American Bus Benchmarking Group looks at, I believe it's the number of incidents, and we're right in the average for the number of incidents that occur. And what was your other point?
It was just
It
incidents, it was incidents per mile because.
And then,
that-
at fault and not at fault, we do have those statistics. And I am amazed at how many times I see, most of the time, it's people hitting the bus,
Right,
knocking off a mirror. They love to try to go around us and cut in front of us,
right.
things like that.
Well, it's, you know.
But we'd be happy to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always good to know how we're really, you know, doing, and, you know, certainly that seems like we're doing okay, you know, but.
And again, it's our philosophical approach to handling claims,
Yeah.
I think that makes a difference.
Could, Debbie, could you review with us real quickly, what is our amount that we pay on a claim? In other words, of that 4.4 million, what percentage of that is actually paid by us, and what amount is paid by carriers?
Actually, except for a few claims, we actually pay out most of it because they're smaller claims. On the larger claims, when we reach a limit, we actually get money back. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later today when we talk about the operating budget. We get recoveries back on some large claims. We also do something called subrogation. That's where we go against the third party. And I'm sure Michael can look it up during the course of the meeting here, but we do very, very well in getting money back from third parties.
But for our payouts for claims where we're at fault, do we have insurance over a certain amount?
We do. We have general liability insurance, and I'm trying to remember, I think the limit might be 100,000. On that, and 250 self-insured retention on workers' comp.
Okay, all right, yeah, that's good, okay. All right, very interesting report, and thank you for that. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Debbie.
It is, as Commissioner Eggers mentioned, it's like a two-part, the whole risk management is really two parts. It's not having accidents, it's having a safety program that we have fewer accidents. And then, once we do have accidents, managing the claims, which are consistent. Anytime someone gets hurt or PSTA gets an accident, we get a call, you know?
Right.
And managing that in an efficient way. And really, the risk management part of PSTA does a great job on the back end. They've always done a really good job.
I find myself when I'm driving down the road, if I see a bus off to the side, you know, with whatever weight cars there, they seem to have one every once in a while right by my office, so they pull off to the side of the road there, and I can see it.
Oh, like a supervisor watching?
Yeah. So, okay, now, next item on the agenda is the monthly financial statement. So,
Thank you.
are you ready to go with that one?
You're going to be tired of listening to me talk by the end of today. Try to liven it up a bit. If you turn to page 43 in your packet, we're reviewing the month of April. And we had a very good month of April. We were $388,000 favorable to our budgeted deficit of $1.2 million. When we take a look at the revenues, we're $250,000 favorable. Our passenger fares, while we are under budget, we're starting to see a stabilization in where it's heading. We also, as we talked about during the course of the year, we were behind in getting some of the grants in, simply because like the state grants were awarded and signed off on late this year. So now we're playing catch up. And so you can see those are the main reasons as to why we are over budget, which is a good thing. On revenues, on expenses, we continue to be under budget in almost all areas. The supplies expense, again, for our bus overhauls, are above budget during the month and just about on target on a year-to-date basis. Our insurance expense is, we have $15,000 favorable or unfavorable there. And again, it's just the timing of these recoveries. And the recoveries come from, since we're talking about insurance, from the third party. We will collect money to repay ourselves for the work that we've done to repair the buses. If we turn to the next page, we can take a look to see where we are on a year-to-date basis. And we are basically right on target to budget. In a bit, we're going to be talking about with the group where we see ourselves for 2016. And because we're going to see ourselves in a very favorable spot by the time we reach the end of the year. Right now, we are on target. We're going to be getting some significant recoveries coming in that will help to bolster that along with some other cost-saving measures. So we're looking good, and on the next page, we are performing better than we did last year. Are there any questions on the financials?
Are we going to talk of ridership later? Or is that in here?
Yeah, I think that's a separate item.
That's a separate item.
Yeah, that's the next one down.
Okay. All right. I'll wait then.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Dyson.
Yeah, I would just mention, we keep saying we're 10% under budget or 15% under budget on our passenger fares. But I noticed that our fares are basically above what we did the previous year. So that, you know, when things keep going up and up, then you project up and up, and that's probably what happened with our passenger fares this year. But we're still doing a whole lot better than we did the previous year.
That is correct. We've had a fare increase this year, so that accounts for part of it. Also, 2015, I think, was our record year for riders.
Yeah.
So we were basing it off probably an extraordinarily high year.
And we're also having more riders this year than we had the previous year, but the fares are down a little bit. So actually we're doing better than last year as far as fares, and we're bringing more people. It's just that apparently when we were doing our budget, we went a little bit above what we could actually get. And I noticed that what we're doing next year is we're figuring that our budget is only going to be about 0.5% more than we're currently doing. So it looks like we're not going ahead with our budget on a pro rata basis or something. So it seems like it's a lot more reasonable.
Quick question.
Yes.
On the advertising, you made a change and brought the outside group in, and it's showing an increase in advertising. Is that, are we starting to see some of that?
We are, we're definitely above last year from what we had anticipated, and they are pretty much right on target to budget this year. And I think we're anticipating a slight increase for next year as well. So that was an excellent idea to go ahead with outsourcing.
Yeah. Not sure that we're seeing a huge increase in the amount of ads on the sides of the buses, but our competitive procurement of that service substantially increased the guarantee. The way those contract work, the advertising contract workers, we get a guarantee whether they sell any ads or not, they're going to pay us, and that went way up, and that's what we're seeing.
Correct, but if we, I would assume that if we don't get to the level of satisfaction with that, then that may change. How long is that contract?
Yeah.
Is that a yearly contract?
It was for 3 years, I
3
believe,
years.
plus 2 more.
Okay. All right, I see Morgan out there, that's for sure.
So modest increases on the dollars, but not so much on the activity yet.
Yeah. I mean, the way the contract is set up is there's a minimum guarantee, which went way up for us. And then over and above, once they hit that guarantee, then over and above, we get a certain percentage of sales. So if all the buses were sold with ads, we would be getting even more than the guarantee, and we're not. I don't think we've hit that yet.
Well, we're above budget so far year to date, and we have budgeted, I believe, $350,000 more this year than the previous year.
That's good.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, Debbie, appreciate it.
The next item is an info item on the ridership, and Commissioner Eggers has left the room, so he had a question about it.
Yep.
You can see that at your places. It is down compared to last year, pretty consistent and like substantial 11%, or I'm sorry, 12.3% total. We are looking at we were doing some analysis of this to probably come back to you and present next month, a more detailed analysis of our ridership trends. And but I can try to answer any questions.
The main question is the way in which we're developing the ridership, because we have the school programs and other programs. Some of the employers are also doing the same thing, where they're doing basically a mass buy of ridership, but the actual cost per or revenue per person is lower. But that should drive our ridership up. Because more, as an example, more college kids are riding the bus than used to.
Correct.
Okay.
And we're going to show that data, but the ridership of the actual ridership you see on this page is when someone boards the bus and they either put their money into the fare box or cash into the fare box, or they swipe their pass.
Mm-hmm.
Or they show their student ID.
Mm-hmm.
The bus driver presses a button, and those numbers are the ones you see on this page. This does not have to do with the revenue, the money coming in. That's what Debbie just presented.
Mm-hmm.
And for students, their university is paying, as you said, a lump sum
Right.
into the revenue. But this is reflecting everyone that is riding.
Mm-hmm.
The number of students that are riding has substantially increased since the UPass program was installed, and that patronage is not seemingly decreasing. It actually seems like it's going up a little bit. But overall, you see we operate about 1 million rides a month. The number of UPass rides per month is somewhere on the order of about 55,000 rides a month. So it's a pretty small portion of the overall ridership. But that piece of the equation of those riders are holding flat or going up a little bit. Transportation disadvantaged rides, which we're looking at carefully, that's the type of rider that has been skyrocketing. The number of times people with transportation disadvantage passes ride the bus has been increasing very consistently until we increased the fare on TD, which was back in November, and it has started to fall. It's still way, way higher than it ever was, and so we're looking at that. But we definitely have seen a slight drop after 2 or 3 years of double-digit increases in transportation disadvantage rides since November 1st, when the transportation disadvantage bus pass went from $8.25 to $11. It's gone down a little bit. You'll see all that in beautiful color and grass if I can get it done next month.
Yes.
So next
Joseph.
month you'll have some breakdown by type of rider.
Yeah.
The other thing that it would be interesting to know for me anyway is we've got the comparison of 15 to 16. 15 was our high year. How did we compare with the 14 year, which might have been a little bit more normal, or maybe if so, that would be something of interest. The other thing that I would ask is, do we sense that the bus drivers are able to hit the count button when either a TD the TD riders swipe,
Yeah.
but for the UPass, are they able to hit the count button every time a person gets on showing their ID?
I'm sure James Trafford over there would say absolutely.
Yeah, I think we're confident that happens. And we try to raise awareness for newer operators, and we check in. The one thing about the operators, they'll be quick to come to the window or ask questions if they feel like they're not classified correctly.
Yeah.
I think we do a fairly good job.
Because I just want to make sure we're getting credit for
Absolutely.
folks that ride. And those I don't understand how the drivers can do everything they do, and that we expect them to do anyway. So,
It's something, to me, it's something psychological. Bus operators are the most vigilant people on the face of the earth as far as people paying their fare. Anyone pays less than the $2.25 or has some kind of weird looking pass, looks like maybe a doctored St. Pete College ID pass, and they will immediately go to the window and report this person as a felony. It's never been the opposite way. I've never been a bus operator that's been loose on it.
when we go to the new fare card system, will that system be able to capture electronically through a tap or a employment IDs or the St. Pete College IDs?
It will have the capability of that.
So if St. Pete College puts an RFID chip in there.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask that. If they could put a magnetic strip or a chip that, much like the transportation disadvantage swipes, why couldn't the student IDs be swiped if we want to track that?
They could.
We'd have to have coordination with the various institutions.
Right. I'm a little bit hesitant toward guaranteeing that, because one of the great benefits of the UPass program is that it requires it eliminates the somewhat significant pre-planning that someone has to do to ride the bus, because you don't have to worry about the fare. You can use the St. Pete College ID badge or USF St. Pete badge to spin in your pocket, or that you use all the time. And you don't have to go to the HR or student center and get some kind of pass.
Mhm.
We are going to experiment this coming semester, this fall semester at St. Pete College with a sticker,
Mhm.
which I'm very fearful of. It's going
Mhm.
to hurt ridership, but my staff is insistent that people are nefariously coming up with St. Pete College ID badges that are not legitimate. So we're going to experiment with a sticker that they can get that they have to put on their ID badge to ride the bus, and we'll see how that goes. But
Ms. Borchers, you had a comment?
Yes, the St. Pete College is thinking about changing their IDs, and if they choose a chip that is compatible with our system, then we can do all of the things that we
We're
want to
talking
do,
about that.
and then give them control of turning chips on and off.
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Yeah. All
But
right, very good.
that's on their end of their change in compatibility with us.
Commissioner Knight?
Yeah, I was noticing that our dart ridership is going up and up. We keep talking about that. Is there any possibility that we can get more money with the 5307 or with the state saying that this is going up and we haven't noticed it before, and it's something we'd like them to address? Are we pushing on this in any way?
We are pushing on it. We are applying for a number of different grant programs to allow DART eligible customers to ride a different type of service, either a cab or care ride or a wheelchair van, or potentially in the future a Uber or Lyft kind of service that wouldn't necessarily, it wouldn't be a paratransit trip, but it would be the person who would ride that service at a less lower cost of PSTA than riding on our DART at a higher cost. We are looking at that. It's I guess ambivalence about whether or not it's good to see DART going up or down. It is certainly giving people, it's evidence that people are taking advantage of the service, but it's certainly costing PSPA substantially more than if they rode the bus or some other kind of, they got their transportation in some other way. So we're looking at that.
Is that a state or federal, or who would be paying us?
The Americans with Disability Act is a federal mandate that we provide DART, and technically our technically our federal formula funds, which could be used to pay for DART, but it's based on a formula, and we're dedicating all of it to our capital program and buses. I think if you asked a congressman, they would say, or FTA, they would say, oh, you can use your 5307 funds that we give you to pay for your paratransit, but then we couldn't use it to buy buses.
Mm.
We get a set amount, and we spend it consistently with how most of the other transit systems spend it, which is not on the paratransit. Paratransit is mostly paid for by our own local funds.
Okay.
Just a question.
Yes.
Do we know what's happening on bus complaints? It seems to be going up on the last chart. And I'm looking at this one. You know, not, well, I'm looking at the
Second page.
the graph.
We can take a look at that. I hadn't really noticed that as a long-term trend. It seems to fluctuate.
Yeah.
But it does look like it's gone up the last couple of months. We can take a look at that more.
Last year we had higher ridership, but we were lower complaints per
Yeah.
thousand.
It would be helpful also, I think, if we had sort of some categorization, so we knew we have a particular type of complaint, you know, put it in different categories.
Yeah, we do keep track of the different categories for complaint. We started to report on the sheet complaints for DART riders, which, as you can see, are substantial. because actually whenever a trip is late, it's one person per vehicle. So whenever, if cab is late, they complain. We get complaints at a much higher rate on DART. But we can look at the regular bus trips, see if there's some kind of.
We did adjust the reporting a little bit, and in all likelihood, it probably is on a slight upward climb, and we have had some significant events, you know, and adjusting our service and getting out of Williams Park. So we have had additional inquiries from folks just trying to figure out where to go, where to be. So we have certainly seen a spike just from folks just trying to really get answers. But Brad agreed, I can dig into that a little bit more. And we do categorize it by type, so I can certainly make that information available.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Eggers, you were out of the room when we started talking about the ridership, and you had a question about ridership.
No, my only question was is that we've noticed a downward trend, and we had some discussion about that, you and me, and
Yeah.
that you were still looking into, there's been a national trend, you said, in lower ridership, and what's going on? Is it the new alternative styles of transportation that are becoming available, the Uber, Lyft, and all of that? Are they pulling their cars out because gas is out of the garage because gas prices are have been dropping over the last? What's the global issue? I think it is a note, especially with the fact that we've been trying to do these private pay or these contracts with organizations to get their, you said students for the most part are taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
It would seem that our ridership would be tending the other way with these new contracts, but we're actually, those are being offset by even a bigger decrease. So it's a little alarming or concerning, I guess. So I want to make sure we continue to.
So, and I reported that next month we'll have some of that detail put together.
Okay. All right. These future, I'm sorry.
I think you're moving us around.
Yeah. I just wanted to double check. Some of these future meeting subjects, do we have any kind of order set up for when these would come up, or are they just sort of random?
They're not random, but I don't know exactly what the order is. I mean, the ridership analysis will be next month, and I think the health insurance will also be next month.
Okay.
Paratransit service will be next month.
All of it is next month.
All of it is next month. Were we going to put a TD thing on this agenda?
Okay.
Did Lost Ones, did we put a TD thing on this agenda?
Yeah, I'll follow that there. I'll verify.
All right.
All right. Yes, Commissioner Johnson?
I guess this would be under other business, or do we have a couple extra minutes here?
Yes, we do. We're good.
The question I had, and it sort of goes into the budget for next year, the risk, the payments that we make, where does that show up in our budget?
Well, we budget for increases in whatever the claims may be, offset by any payouts that we make. And I know we keep track of that in the budget, the payments that we make. You don't see it on a line, but you will see under the insurance, which is Division 70, in there is where you'll see detail. I'm not sure you see the detail, but there's detail behind it.
Insurance, is that a separate division?
It is Division 70.
Listed in the budget that way?
Is it in our budget book?
Yeah. And then workers' comp is within the fringe benefits in each department.
I guess I.
Mike, do you know where it is?
Yeah, I mean, or is it here? It's there.
in this line. Workers' comp.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we're a few minutes early. We're going to have a joint meeting here for 10:15. Is that the plan?
Yeah, if you want to, take a break
Yeah.
and then reconvene at 10:15.
Yeah. Okay, let's, thank you very much, everyone, for moving things along well this morning. And so we'll reconvene at 10:15. For what our action presentation is number 7 on our agenda, and I think it's number 2 on yours. Is that correct? Okay. And Heather is going to lead us in information about the capital improvement program. You
And
have
actually,
something you want to do as an intro, Brett?
I'm going to do the presentation on the intro.
Okay.
Since I have, thank you all for coming.
Excuse me 1 second. I've got a public comment. Yeah, he's not here anyway, so. Go ahead, let's go ahead and keep working.
I'm not sure if Mr. Compton wants to do that. He can give that after my presentation or
That'd be
before.
for you, I think.
I have a little advertisement I'd like to give all of the board members about our pending switch to the Granicus agenda software that some of you might be familiar with. Debbie?
Good morning,
Go for it.
everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
My name's Deborah Woodward. I'm the Director of Information Technology. As you recall, earlier this year, the board did approve going forward with Granicus, which is an agenda management system that is actually using an app on any device that you have, tablet or laptop. And just to give you an update of what's going on, we are looking to roll this out for the July board meeting. So my team is going to work with you all to make sure that app gets put on your device. And if we could do it sometime like next month around this time frame, when you are here, we can do it. Otherwise, we will get a hold of your office and see what works for you to make it convenient. I know a number of the board members, county commission members, already use it, so you're somewhat familiar with it. And just like you all, we are learning how to use it as well. In fact, we don't even have the equipment installed yet. So once they get the equipment installed, we'll be able to actually do our training and then train you all as well. It is an agenda management. It also has a voting feature on it. So you can actually vote on agenda items within the meeting. And this is only for the board meeting. This is not for any committee. It's just the board meeting.
Okay.
Okay? Anybody have any questions?
Yes, go ahead, please.
So, 3 of us have
Yes.
that, so when we need a
You will see
second
the
app,
PSTA one that'll be on your tablet or your device.
icon for the PSTA?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll have the G on it just like Granicus has right now, I believe on here.
And you planning to use the voting function? We haven't
Yep.
incorporated
We are
it
going to
yet.
try and use it, yes.
Okay.
The idea is that once we get our
Okay.
training and we see that we have the ability to use it ourselves, we will also ask you to also learn it and also use it.
It has some issues.
Yeah.
So,
It has some issues.
I know, I've already talked to the county folks.
so except for the county commissioners, then you'll have to load this on
Yes, we will.
individual
Yes. That's why I asked at
programs?
some point in the next committee meeting in July, if we could spend just maybe 10 minutes with you to load that onto your device that you have. I also have loaner devices for the board meetings that we will issue to those that don't have tablets or laptops or anything like that.
So when you vote, does something pop up and say Mark Dighton votes no or yes?
It will.
It will, okay.
It will.
So we'll be able to track it, huh?
Yeah.
You will be able
So
to-
every
It will
vote-
make this lady over here life a lot easier.
So every vote will have all the yays and all the nays?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
Who made the motion?
Just
Nice
one
thing
second.
about the agenda package is you can add your own little notes to it, so if you want to talk about something during the meeting, you can bring that up because you've got a little note for yourself to remind yourself, yeah. Yes, Commissioner.
The only suggestion is, if you're gonna have a limited supply.
Yes, we do have one.
That you go with the pros for the larger
It is
screen.
actually current devices we have.
Eh,
We'll see how it works and if I should.
But get an
grant money, we'll
optometrist
replace
on
it.
contract.
Okay.
You need that real estate.
Yeah, understood. Believe me, understood. Any other questions? You may continue.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Okay.
Brett,
Okay, we're good.
move forward.
Okay, good morning. Thank you all for being here. So this is an action item. We are currently convened as the Finance Committee, and it's on page 50 of the Finance Committee packet, and on page 2 of the Planning Committee packet. And then following my presentation, public comment, and discussion, it's my recommendation that both committees make a recommendation to the PSTA board next week on actually a 3-part action item. To summarize what you see on page 50 and on page 2 is part A, B, and C. Part A is to approve the PSTA capital improvement program, the full CIP. There's a number of things in the CIP that I'll touch upon, but of course the thing that we've been discussing most intently and is contained within that CIP is a recommendation on purchasing 5 replacement buses in FY17. The vote that you're taking, I'm recommending is, although the CIP is a 5-year CIP, you're only making a decision on 1 year worth of buses, and even in that vote, you're taking a higher level, you're adopting a higher level goal that might change the mix of types of buses depending on some other things happening that I'm going to describe. Part B is to adopt, for the first time, a higher level goal of focusing on improved fuel economy, is allowing decisions to be made at my level to order equipment or new technology that improves fuel economy whenever possible, but that I report to you and always ensure that we are increasing our fuel economy above the 4.6 miles per gallon that we're estimating is our current, or will be our current fuel fleet-wide miles per gallon. And then part C is to allow this to be the one and only vote for the next year. That when you approve the CIP, since we already have a board-approved contract with the Gillig Bus Company that we partner with the rest of the transit systems in the state of Florida on a consortium bid, saves us substantial dollars, that we don't have to take additional votes, knowing how challenging this has been over the next year, and that this vote, depending on how things play out with the county's upcoming decision about using the BP settlement funds or receipt of federal grants, we can still use the existing authorizations that we have in place to place those bus orders. So that's what A, B, and C, the CIP, setting the fuel economy, and allowing this to be the one vote that we take on these bus decisions, which really is an efficiency measure for the PSTA board. I'm going to touch upon each of those items just quickly. The 5-year CIP, again, has other stuff in it besides buses, but we're going to focus on that primarily. The capital budget, the CIP that you have in front of you, aligns with the Path Forward strategic plan. It is a sustainable program out through 2021 based on the federal grants that we are anticipating receiving. It totals to $90 million over 5 years, but a little bit more, actually more than half of that is dedicated to bus replacement, to the ongoing replacements every year of our oldest buses to maintain the 210 bus fleet we currently have. Incidentally, last Friday, we had a really was it last Friday or some Friday? We had a fantastic joint open house or networking session with Disadvantaged Business Enterprises, DBEs. PSTA, by the fact that we are a federal grant recipient, we are required to have a DBE program where we set a goal and then target to have disadvantaged business enterprises participate in our contracting opportunities. And we had this awesome session downstairs in the boardroom, joint session with HART. And we had maybe 80 or 90 contractors, private sector contractors in the room. The room was full of contractors wanting to do business with PSTA and HART. And HART officials, and we were there. and the Hart CFO got up there and announced to this room full of interested bidders, good news that the budget at Hart's fiscal year 17 had $10 million worth of contracting opportunities for non-vehicle capital projects. Non-vehicle capital projects, 10 million bucks that these guys were gonna bid on. And then PSTA got up there and said, good news, we have $2 million worth of non-vehicle capital improvement program projects that we can offer you guys. The reason that we're at $2 million and that Hart is at $10 million is because Hart receives MPO and Hillsborough County funds into their capital program that we do not, so that they can buy buses with those funds, and they have more funds for shelters, for facility improvements and things like that. But we do have other programs. We still have a strong program. We could use more, but we have $850,000 currently in existing and next year's grants for bus shelters and passenger facilities. We're going to be moving forward, as you well know, on the Central Avenue Bus Rapid Transit project. We have FY17 will be a major year for rolling out our joint mobile payment system with Hart. In the next year, we will have a product that is on your phone, tentatively called Flamingo, that will allow you to use your phone like you do at the airport to ride any bus in the 7-county region. And then last, the other major item in our CIP that's not buses is software. Software upgrades to our 2 primary backbone systems that we have at PSTA. The HASCA scheduling software that organizes our entire bus system and the schedules of our bus routes, and our real-time system called Clever, which is part of Clever Devices, that will allow us to enhance our data. Those are the other projects, primary projects that are in that capital improvement program. Now moving on to the main item, which is the buses. As we've discussed, we've had hours of discussion about this one topic, about what kind of buses PSTA should buy to replace to our ongoing fleet. We've had a lot of public input. I have met with both Miss Barbara Hazelton and Phil Compton, and I know that both those groups are gathering petitions for that I will present to you next week, once they get them to me, on whether or not petitions from citizens in our community they're signing that PSA should buy smaller vehicles, like our connector buses, and then others that in the community that are weighing, as you know, have strong interest in us buying the electric buses. And I'm pleased to recommend a plan to satisfy both those ideas, to buy smaller vehicles and a greater number of smaller vehicles, and then also, given that other things occur, launch a pilot to buy electric no-emission vehicles as well. I said before that we plan on only having one vote this month on this decision. We're going to have another vote next month, or hopefully next month, on replacement of the 8 North County Connector cutaway shuttle buses that we currently have. Those are now ending their useful life. We are planning on purchasing a little bit different kind of vehicle. We're purchasing one that looks like this. It's a little bit heavier duty. It's a 7-year, 200,000 mile certified small shuttle bus, rather than the current buses we have, which are 5-year, 150,000 mile shuttle buses. We buy those off of a different contract, off of a state DOT contract that the state procures and then allows any transit system, even the small systems across the state, to buy off of. And they have not awarded that contract yet. We're waiting on the DOT to award that, which we're hoping will happen shortly after their fiscal year starts, and then we'll be able to come next month and buy 10 of these slightly more reliable, we believe, and better, smaller buses. In addition, I am recommending that the 40-foot buses that we replace, the 5 that are in the CIP, be replaced with slightly smaller ones, 35-foot buses, yellow buses, to replace the 40-foot buses. That's mostly symbolic. Those do not cost substantially less than the 40-foot buses, but in the spirit of essentially trying to right-size our fleet with the ridership trends, etc., we believe we can buy the 35-foot buses, and that would not be a problem. At your request, we have done further analysis since the last board meeting, and this chart is shown in the presentation. We have replaced the CNG column in this analysis with a new column called shuttle bus. Those are the small buses. Again, the buses that we the small shuttle buses that we currently operate are certified to operate for 5 years or 150,000 miles. So this analysis tried to compare apples to apples. Each of these other kinds of vehicles, the diesel, the hybrid, BAE, and the Proterra electric bus, is certified to operate 600,000 miles over its useful life. So for the same amount of miles that we run a heavy-duty bus, 600,000 miles, we would have to purchase 4 small shuttle buses like the North County connectors that we operate today. So this column is based on 4 small buses equaling 1 big bus. Does that make sense?
Yes.
What's the capital infrastructure for a shuttle bus?
I'm gonna talk about that in a second, yeah.
My understanding, what you just said a minute ago was that these buses are lasting, the new ones that you're talking about, by 200,000 miles.
Yeah, and that's my next slide. That's a little bit different.
Sorry, we're jumping ahead, we just shut up and listen.
If we would just keep buying the buses we have been buying, the shuttles, 4 to 1. So that's why the base shuttle bus costs $100,000 roughly off the state contract. So that's why it's $400,000, because over the same period of time, it would be 4 buses. There is approximately $60,000 times 4, or $240,000 of equipment and other things to make it a PSTA bus, the bike rack, the cameras, the real-time equipment, etc. There is this other $250,000 capital infrastructure cost that we are applying to the small buses, although this is a capital improvement that is in our CIP that we plan on doing no matter what the decision is. But it is related to the small bus. This is a special lift in our maintenance division, designed to lift up the small types of buses. This facility, built 11 years ago, is completely designed around maintaining 40-foot buses. And all of the lifts in our maintenance shop are designed to lift only long 40-foot buses. They cannot lift 30 feet buses like these shuttle buses. We have over the years bought special mobile lifts, cheaper mobile lifts that can lift the small buses we already have, but they lift the vehicles by their wheels. And so they're okay, but if you have any problem with the wheels, you can't lift the bus up and change the wheels or fix the wheels or brakes or anything with the rivet to the wheels. And so we need to buy a scissor lift. That's the right term, right, Henry? Which is about $250,000. This would allow for basically full use, full maintenance of these small types of vehicles. It is completely related to the small bus purchase. That's why we put in this column. But we're planning on coming back to you with an award of that, no matter what. But that's an important
Do we
capital
have
item.
space to do that inside our facility?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're not going to have to delete some other lift or other activity somewhere in the building. We have space to put in another lift like that.
Correct. Again, we are maintaining the small 10 small buses today, and we're using these other kind of lifts. But yeah, we do need to. We do work on the wheels, and that is much. This would make it much more efficient to do this work. But in this financial analysis that we're presenting on this page, we thought it was appropriate to present this information as attributable to a plan to buy smaller buses. It is an important component.
So we already have 10 of these shuttle buses. And as you said, we're going to buy this equipment anyway. I don't think it's appropriate to put it on this list of investments like you're putting in the charger for the electric buses, because that's a new, we don't have any electric buses yet. We absolutely have to have that.
Well,
Just seems-
no, if we chose to replace the 10 shuttle buses that we have today, which 8 of them or all 10 of them are due for replacement, we would not, with 40-foot or heavy-duty buses, we would not need that 250K capital item. I mean, your point is well taken. We can take it out, but it is a investment completely related to the maintenance of these small buses.
Right? Yeah.
Commissioner,
I think it inflates the cost unnecessarily.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yeah, don't we have some underground facilities where guys can go under and work up on the bus? Can we use that money?
All right.
We do have pits, but those do not allow us to raise the vehicle up to do brake work, wheel leg work.
So if you want to work on the brakes, then you've got to.
We still have to lift the vehicle up, which we do not have the proper way to do at this time.
Sorry, go ahead.
And we can do the analysis certainly with that, or you can do the math yourself. The punchline is essentially because it's 4 buses for every 1 bus, the life cycle cost is relatively consistent.
Commissioner Johnson?
The scissor lift is for the small buses. What about the 35-foot buses that we're going to be required? Can they be used with the 40-foot bus?
We have our lifts that we have now are able to lift 30, 35, and 40-foot heavy-duty transit coach buses,
Okay,
not the smaller type vehicles that we're talking about.
thank you. Okay.
This analysis shown on this page shows that over the life of the bus, the total cost for the equivalent number of vehicles that we would need is about 1.3 million versus 1.1 for the diesel, 1.2 for the hybrid, 1.6 for the electric. If you took out the 250 and didn't attribute that to the small buses, it would be 1.1, about almost exactly what the diesel bus cost would cost. We did the analysis again on the, just to answer Commissioner Egger's question, we did the analysis a second time with this new bus that we're proposing to buy, this slightly better cutaway shuttle bus. That is a $200,000 bus. I'm sorry, yeah, $200,000 total, but it's 140 plus 60 additional costs to make it a PSTA bus. It is certified to operate for 200,000 miles for 7 years. It is a slightly more expensive vehicle. It is not all great because it is only available in a high floor variety. It looks like this. It's somewhat more like a school bus. there are stairs. All the rest of our big buses at PSTA are considered low-floor vehicles where you walk straight on the bus, or you roll straight onto the bus. It has a ramp that you roll onto the bus. Our customers definitely appreciate not having stairs. They're not just for people with disabilities, but senior citizens, Brad Miller, every single person. It is easier to walk straight on, and the stairs are somewhat cumbersome to lots of people. And these vehicles only come, because they are the way they're designed, they need stairs. They have a wheelchair lift that gets you up the stairs, so they're ADA accessible, but they're just not low floor. Is there any other questions about this cost-benefit, cost analysis of the smaller vehicles? Commissioner?
Not the smaller vehicles, but other vehicles.
Okay.
Okay. So the, and if you don't have it now, if we could just get it before the meeting. Is our meeting next week?
Yeah.
Okay. The 308,962 turnkey costs for hybrids. Can we get a detail of what makes that number up?
Yes, we have provided that to you, but essentially that includes the conversion of the vehicle to be a hybrid electric bus from.
Is that on the
diesel.
spreadsheet you gave us?
Yeah.
Okay.
There were some detailed spreadsheets for each of these cost elements: diesel,
All right.
Proterra, and VAE.
I'll search for it. Yeah, I can see that really
It's very small type. But the big ticket item in that is actually making it into a hybrid.
Okay, the other question I had is the $589,000 for the chargers for Proterra.
Yeah.
That's for an overhead and for a depot.
That is for an quick on-route charger overhead, like the picture shows, like that.
Mm-hmm.
And installation of that in downtown St. Petersburg, plus one depot charger.
Can you get us the estimated life of those chargers?
Yes.
And also, I think it was 9 buses they could support, the number of buses they could support, and the estimated life.
Yes, we can
Okay.
get that information. That sounds fine.
And thank you for doing the $3 per gallon analysis.
Yeah, yeah, oh, I, thank you for pointing that out.
Sure.
This analysis is different than the analysis we did in the Finance and Planning Committee last month, because we have assumed a $3 per gallon diesel fuel cost in the life of the vehicle. Before, we were assuming a $1.88 cost over the life of the vehicle, which, even though diesel prices today are less than $1.88, they're rising, and they've lately been rising. And
Wow, it's still less than 188?
over the life,
It's still less than 188 today?
yeah,
Really?
We have contracts.
non-taxed,
Okay.
I think it's around $1.55, something like that.
Actually, the last time before I left, it was $1.48.
Okay.
Right.
This is tied in with our contracts, our long-term
Well, that would be the
contracts?
market price, and
Yeah.
then we've got long-term prices.
Okay. Commissioner Jones?
Just as long as we're talking about the fuel, I ran the calculation for the fuel Proterra, I verified that. And when I looked at the diesel one, I think that's calculating 4 miles per gallon.
Yes.
And don't the aren't we saying the diesels are a little bit better than that, the proposed new diesels? would be-
We've assumed 4 miles a gallon, I'm not sure.
It's an industry baseline.
4 miles per
4 miles.
whereas the VAEs have better mileage.
We're assuming 6 based off what we've heard from other authorities.
And what are you assuming on the shuttle buses?
6.
6 is
6 as well?
Other questions? Okay.
So again, the recommendation from staff is to adopt a CIP that is sustainable out to 2021. But by approving a higher level goal of improved fuel economy, the recommendation is to maintain flexibility in the exact mix of replacement buses we buy, depending on what I understand to be upcoming decisions by the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners about possibly allocating some of the BP settlement funds to buying a charging station, to paying for the charging station costs. If the county does approve of, and we are able to fund the charging station outside of the PSTA CIP, then we would purchase two not necessarily Proterra, but two no-emission electric buses. We would do a procurement. It might be Proterra, it might be some other vendor. Electric buses that essentially 2 of these 5 would become electrics. If option B is we have applied for and we expect to receive notice of whether we're successful at getting a federal low-no grant sometime this summer, is what we're hearing. And we've applied for as many as 5 electric buses, and we applied for the charging station. So if we get any or some of that grant, we also will be able to buy fewer than 5 diesel buses and buy electric buses instead. So essentially, again, next week is the recommended vote on this, but we would not actually place the order with Gillig right away, or potentially, just depending on what we hear from Gillig, we might place the order right away for those 5, and then next year when we come back, when we have a plan to order 15, we would go ahead and order the electric buses if either the BP money or the federal money comes through, and then they would change out buses in next year's order. It just depends on the timing of events. I think the county has a public input session in July, and then depending on the timing of when we hear from the FTA and the county, will sort of based on our order with Gillig. And again, I want to keep emphasizing this over and over. Maybe I haven't done the greatest job of presenting this, but it is important to always remember that the most important function of PSTA is providing people with an alternative transportation mode to get to where they need to go. And I know that is the most environmentally friendly thing that PSTA does. Give people an alternative in Pinellas County to driving a car. Without PSTA, there would be no transportation option, especially in the rain, but you can't, a lot of people don't like to ride their bike in the rain. Perhaps there might be a future with Uber and Lyft operating everyone around, but that also has its limitations for a number of our riders. If PSTA does not have a sustainable program and can't maintain a reliable fleet of 210 buses carrying 14 million annual riders, we will have an unreliable fleet and overall ridership will decrease. And that will raise overall emissions in Pinellas County, no matter what kind of bus PSTA chooses to buy. PSTA today, and hopefully in the future, is a net benefit to the county. That providing public transportation is a net benefit because we provide folks a more environmentally way to get from point A to point B. I presented this slide last month, but the fewer buses that we can rely on because we are behind in our replacement, on our annual replacement of buses to maintain our reliable fleet of 210 vehicles, the lower the ridership will be, or if we have to dedicate funds of our own property tax funds to supporting the bus purchase rather than just relying on capital and reserves for that. We will have to reduce service. That will also lower ridership. And our net benefit, environmental benefit, in terms of net greenhouse gas emissions, no matter what kind of bus we choose to buy, will go down. The most environmentally friendly thing we can do is to approve of a constantly improving our fuel economy across the entire fleet, hopefully getting to 4.7 and maintaining that 210 buses, reliable buses in our fleet. We constantly hear from citizens, and we heard from a large number of citizens just last week. Commissioner Long and I went, had a town hall meeting at Countryside Mall up in Dunedin, or whatever Countryside Mall is. Clearwater. It's in Clearwater, sorry.
Dunedin had a chance a few years ago.
Okay, we were in Clearwater. And citizen after citizen came up to Commissioner Long and I and said they need more service. They were working at the mall or at fast food places or restaurants, and they knew they cannot get back because most of the services, especially in northern Pinellas County, end by 6 or 7 o'clock, and their shift goes later. Debbie's going to present to the Planning Committee in a few minutes the proposed budget for next year, which is looking really good. And it would be my recommendation to the board, if the board is, when the board is comfortable with this, that if the board decides to go from the 0.73 tax rate that we are today to our cap of 0.75, generating about $1.1 million, it would be my recommendation, if we can have a sustainable capital program, that money be used to increase service, add service to our customers, especially later at night and on the weekends when we're really deficient on that. If we choose not to have a sustainable program with our funds and we run the risk of having to use our local funds for buses, then I would not recommend that we add service, because we just don't know that, in my opinion, that would be somewhat risky. So again, just to summarize the action, I'm suggesting that both committees take an action to recommend to the board today. You don't have to, of course. You can wait till next month, and we'll just see how it goes. But I think it would help the PSTA board if we took an action on these 3 items. 1, to recommend approval of the capital improvement program that uses the CIP funds that PSTA has available or projects for replacing diesel buses. With then action item B is to set a higher level goal of constantly improving our fuel economy, which gives us the flexibility if either the county DP funds or the federal funds come through to change out those diesel buses for electric buses. And then part C is that this be our final vote on this as part of the CIP using existing contracts.
Okay, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Yeah, as we discussed this year's purchase, could you talk a little bit about what you see over that CIP period as the total number of buses that will need to be replaced in that 5-year period?
So yes, over the 5-year period, we will need to purchase 70 replacement buses. That's relatively easy math. We have 210 buses in our fleet, and they last 15 years. So every 5 years, we need to replace 70 buses. This year happens to only be 5 because of the lumpiness of the former years. Only 5 buses have met their useful life, but we will catch up over the next 4 years and get to 70 over the next 5 years.
And the reason, and again, I think the idea has always been that, if you buy the diesel buses, we can get to those 70 buses with the funds that we have available to us. What you're recommending this year, because we only have 5 that we're replacing, and if we can get outside funding to drop that purchase price essentially on the electric buses to be more competitive with diesel buses this year, that's why you're making that recommendation, to go with diesel, but with the potential ability to switch out those 5 with electric, because the price that we're paying for those electrics this year would be at or less than what we're paying for the diesel.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
With the funds that PSTA has available, we would be able to. It would be the same.
But in that 5-year plan, though, for 70 buses, what you're saying is we're not eating into our available funds too quickly by going electric with the plan this year.
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure that I'm clear on that. Okay, for now, that's all I have.
Commissioner Gerard?
I had a question about, way back in the beginning, well, actually on the final CIP spreadsheet with all the numbers on it, which we haven't talked about yet. When we project out the FTA funds over the 5 years, why is it so different from year to year? I mean, this year we are projecting 2.3 million, and then next year 7.3 million. Why does it go up and down like that?
Where are you?
On page 1 of the 5-page CIP capital budget 5-year plan fiscal year. Yes.
Actually, it's fairly consistent, but we only need a portion of those new FTA funds to meet our bus needs in this year. At some point in the future, we've been putting off a significant number of projects. That too will catch up to us. But our focus now is on bus purchases, so we try to put, what is it, probably $7 million towards the bus purchases. We put money towards preventative maintenance, and the balance goes towards these other little projects that we have on here. So in order to meet the needs for 2017, we used old grants, and then only a portion of our new grant that's coming in, and we rolled over that money for next year. So it is still fairly consistent.
Okay. And then 2 years out, it goes down to
We start going down in the out years
1.5.
because, again, we are putting our emphasis on buses, so we're forestalling other projects as long as we can. One of the major projects is replacement, or at least looking at the replacement of our software, accounting software, which dates back to, I'm not even sure how long it dates back, but we're putting that off because we're making it work and take a look at it. But at some point, like I said, delayed projects will catch up to us.
If you look at the line on page 1, I think that maybe what you're referring to, Commissioner Dory, is if you look at the total buses line, it is relatively consistent from year to year. You see that right in the middle of the page, 7.6, 7.3, 7.5.
She was looking specifically at this
Using
slide.
general reserves.
Well, I know,
Yes.
Yeah.
but then we're using reserve funds
Right.
because we carried over the FTA funds?
Once
or-
when we get into the outer years, we start assuming less FTA funds for buses so we can start doing our other projects. So that's when we start using our reserves to do that. I mean, we could flip it the other way and use those money for buses and use our reserves for capital projects.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yeah, I have a question. In our capital budget last year, we projected we were going to replace 7 buses, and would have cost us $3,619,497. In our CIP for this year, we're not showing any replacement buses in 2016. But in 2017, we're replacing, it says replacement buses 2016, and it went from 3,600,000 to 5,272,000. So I'm
Right.
wondering why that increased so much, And I'm also wondering what's happening with our capital budget this year. If we just took this 3.6 million, where did it go?
So these numbers on each year are based on expenditure in the fiscal year. So that 2016 column is fiscal year 2016, which started on October 1st of last year and goes until September 30th of this year. The PSTA board voted to buy the Gillig buses, hybrid buses. That was a also 8-7 vote of the PSTA board after lots of discussion on September 30th of last year. Actually, in fiscal year 15, we ordered the buses in FY 15 that we locally think are FY 16, but Gillig is not going to replace those until those buses are not going to come in, and we're not going to actually pay write the check until after October 1st of this year. So we technically will not be paying for any buses in this fiscal year. That's just a calendar sort of anomaly. We won't actually be writing any checks for this year because the buses are not going to arrive until sometime we're expecting in October or November of this year.
So
Which will
went
actually be
from-
technically next fiscal year.
But we budgeted 3.6 million and now it's 5.2 million.
Because we went from diesel to hybrid. We budgeted for diesel and the board voted to go to hybrid. So we bought hybrid.
So that's $200,000 more for, $2 million more for the hybrid than for the diesel.
Yeah.
Madam Rice?
And then with the 3.6 million that we had budgeted for this year, what happened to that? Is that in our?
So again, we started looking at doing some diesel to hybrid. Now what we have in here is we've talked about, we're going to budget for diesel and apply for every grant humanly possible so that we can upgrade to more fuel efficient vehicles. But this assumes diesel buses, very basic diesel buses, so that we're fiscally sustainable from that point of view, and then applying for every grant to get us where we need to environmentally.
So the 3.6 does that come out of our capital improvement budget for 2016?
There will be no buses in 2016 because they were ordered at a later time.
Yeah, but I mean, we have the 3.6 million in our
which is now
budget.
part of the 5.3 then.
So where does that
It's included, that 3.6 is now being paid towards hybrid buses.
Okay, so we would transfer that to 2017, but
That's correct, you got it.
thank you.
Madam Chair?
Thank you, Commissioner. That exchange just helped me with my question a little bit, but I'm just trying to kind of come to terms a little bit with, I feel like there's been a middle ground that's been kind of lost with the option for looking at the hybrid buses. Could we look at the slide on, it's number 12, that one. So on the third line, mix/diesels, when you say mix, you're referring to the mix of hybrids and diesels on the fleet currently? What do you mean by the word
Currently,
mix?
yes. The word mix just emphasizes that we are not proposing to eliminate any of the current 60 hybrids that we offer today, but that the CIP moving forward, as Debbie described, with the funds that PSTA has under its control, would recommend for the next 5 years diesel replacements. But they would only be replacing existing diesel buses in their fleet. None of the hybrids would be replaced. But that's what that line 3 is.
So the 2021 net greenhouse gas emissions, I see where you have minus 3,600 tons for the mixed fleet. But the line underneath it, it seems to me that if there were theoretically a fleet with all hybrids, it seems like there would be a greater number than 2,700. I don't see how that number can be less than a fleet with
We can
diesel.
afford less buses.
The reason that it goes down, you are correct. If we had 210 hybrid buses in 2021, it would be more than 3,600 net tons saved. But PSTA funds do not allow that. If we continue to buy hybrid buses instead of diesel buses, we will defer replacement of the oldest diesel buses in our fleet. We will have a less reliable fleet. We will only have a reliable fleet of 173 buses, not the necessary 210. Ridership will go down. More people will drive cars in Pinellas County, and the net benefit of PSTA services with lower ridership is actually less because we have a less reliable fleet. That's how this whole chart works.
And then going back one more slide to page 10, I think it's the slide.
This one?
No, one more. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The word convert. So the low-no grant would convert 2 to 5 electric buses. When you say convert, you mean convert in what we purchase. You're not talking about converting an existing bus that we have.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah. Convert our
Purchasing decision.
Yes.
our purchase decision. Yeah.
I'd just like, if we go back to the slide before that. Okay, thanks. Commissioner Welch and I both did the same math independent of each other. If you look at the bottom where the yellow line is, the difference in cost between diesel and BA hybrids is $90,120 for one diesel bus versus one hybrid bus. So that's a fairly small number over the lifetime of the bus itself. And the second thing is, if you go over one more column, if you take out the $589,000 for the charging system, assuming that is purchased with funds from the MPO or some other source, county, wherever, then the lifetime cost of the electric bus is $1,101,338. So that actually becomes less expensive than either a diesel or a hybrid bus. So obviously down the road, that would ultimately save us money over time if we can acquire the charging source from an outside entity. That's a key factor, I think.
And the training is a one-time.
Yeah. Yes, Commissioner Eggers?
Yeah, and I think there's a couple things here. The cost of gas, your point is a good one. But I think there's two issues, again, we have to keep reminding ourselves of. Life cycle costs being over the life of that vehicle versus this 5-year window of PSTA being able to afford to replace the buses that we have. And going back to that other slide that we were looking at,
This one.
yeah, that one, the number of reliable buses goes down. So in the short run, there's an issue that we have to deal with versus that long run that you're talking about. And I think where you're heading over time certainly is in that direction. But we may not get there, is the point. So we have to provide the reliable buses, and we have to replace 70 buses in the next 5 years. And how do we do that? Unless you get all these grants that help us out in that purchase, we will not be able to do that. That 173 will go down further. So I think those are the two things that we're looking at: that short term versus long term, and trying to drive that overall number down. So I think you're right, but I think there's a contra argument in the short run, and I think those things are both critically important as we try to maximize that environmental, social, and financial, all those combined. I think that's what we're all wrestling with, so, in fairness to everybody. So it's not just a simple.
Okay, yes, Madam Chair?
And Commissioner Buckley, to address your brief comment about the MPO funds, There's certainly been a number of us that have been pushing to use flex funds to help purchase buses, but I don't think the MPO as a whole is quite there yet. And when this conversation came up a few months ago, it was noted by the chairman of the MPO that PSTA, the board decided not to raise, not to max out our ad valorem amount. And it put us in a weaker position to ask for funds for buses when we weren't willing to max out our own ad valorem amount. So I just want to throw that out there.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah, please. Otherwise, I will.
No, I appreciate that, and that was a close vote, and I
Yeah.
understand both sides of it, but you knew that was going to come. We hear that from the state all the time,
Yeah.
on the gas tax issue. So,
Yeah.
but in terms of the VP funds, 3 county commissioners are here. We talked about this at Collaborative Labs in an open meeting. There seems to be support for that. Duke Energy was able to contact Alex Glenn through voicemail tag, and his staff is working on some type of collaboration. So I feel fairly confident in the capital for the chargers. And I do think it's important that we run a pilot. I mean, we don't want to throw technology out there that hasn't been proven. So I've told Brad, I'm where you are basically on the hybrids. To me are close enough to diesel, at least for the last vote that I'm going to have on capital for PSTA, that's what I support. The 3 hybrids and the 2 electric. I would like to see, and I know you may have given this to us before, but show us how the capital funds are projected to be utilized if we went with hybrids versus diesels over the next 5 years.
We can do that again. I think we may have done it last month.
But I like to see it year by year,
Yeah,
because I think
yeah,
Commissioner
we
Eggers
can-
makes a good point.
we
But
can
I want to
do
see exactly how long those funds last, and what are your reserve assumptions? Are you pulling, exhausting reserves at some
We
point? So
exhaust reserves sooner, assuming no other grant funds, we're successful in getting any other grant funds than our regular formula funds.
So is that the year by year that shows you? I
Yeah.
certainly can't see that, but.
We did provide this, last month, we can provide it again.
That's a good eye test.
It's a,
Well, it looks better on the
looks better.
screen.
So down to the
Green versus red.
That shows you year by year if you went all.
You're right. This is all diesel. We are sustainable through 2021. Electrics and hybrid, we run into a deficit, a substantial deficit in 2020. When we have to buy 16 replacement vehicles.
And we've got this from a previous meeting, so I know where to look.
It is, it was in my presentation to the board on.
Full board?
Yeah.
Okay.
On May 25th.
All right, I'll pull it back up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think to answer Chair Rice's comment, I think if that vote were taken today, that it would be different. We have had some changes in the board, and most ardent person who did not want to raise to the max is off the board. I felt that it was prudent to do that last time, and I certainly understand the MPO's argument on that we've got to do everything we can before we look to others. But the issue is, I think that vote will come up again, and we will pass it this time. So if that could be relayed to the MPO, I think that would be beneficial to at least consider that, if not this year, then next year.
Yeah, well, and again, I think it's a fair statement to make, but I certainly don't know that that's the only reason that the MPO was not looking to fund those dollars at this point. I mean, certainly that was an off comment, but I would bet that if we had raised it last year, the vote would have still been the same, not to fund at that point. I don't think that made the issue. I don't disagree that, sometimes taking care of yourself to the max that you can might assist in certain areas, don't think it would have this year in the MPO. Now, maybe that's changing. I think historically, the MPO's not done that, not funded transit. That's a changing thought
That's a
process.
discount. That's a discount.
That does take some time, and it's evolving in discussion. And again, the only other thing I would say to Commissioner Welch's comment on the charger purchase, that was discussed, but we're still, we have an open forum right now. We're still taking input from folks. And, we've kept using the term, Commissioner Stewart's comment that,
Right.
we have many more dollars requested than dollars available. So, again, Commissioner Welch's read of how the commission is going to vote may be accurate, but I still think it's a little bit unfair to be too far down that road until we get all the inputs.
Well,
Well, that's why he's presenting options.
Yeah, I understand. I didn't.
Well, Commissioner Eggers, I thought you said it was a great idea at our last PSTA meeting. So I was
What's a great idea?
The chargers.
No, I said if we're going to go that way, if we're going to go the electric way, then we need to be talking about chargers. I'm still, again, the discussion that we're having this year about replacing those buses with grant funding, it starts to get my attention.
I'll go back and look at the video, because I could have sworn you said.
I don't know that I've
it
ever
was a
said
great
it was
use of those BP funds.
I didn't say it was my choice to use it, but it is a qualified use of BP funds because they were environmentally driven. So that's what I was. That's what I was referring to.
I'll look at it.
Okay.
It may have just been wishful thinking.
No, it was not.
Chair Barkley, just a reminder, before any action is taken, I think we have public comment.
Okay. I just want to zero in on the time factor here because we're cutting into Commissioner Welch's time.
That never happened.
So I want to
We
get.
thought we were doing really well.
We'll take public comment now. I have one card from Phil Compton.
Don't want to hold you up too long. Thank you very much. Phil Compton from Sierra Club, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Tampa Bay Zero Emission Coalition, which is currently comprised of a number of organizations, nonprofit organizations, businesses, neighborhood associations, et cetera, in Pinellas County. There's a lot of excitement about the prospect of PSTA starting to make the switch this year to zero emission electric buses. And people do think it is a very appropriate use of the BP funds. There are still folks, and I'm sorry, Finance Committee, you heard me say this earlier, still folks who want to drill for oil off our beaches and threaten our $6 billion tourism economy. This would be a very visible statement. Not just a symbolic statement, but also a demonstration of how Pinellas County can begin to move away from its own dependence on oil. That was used against us by the American Petroleum Institute 7 years ago when they said, you need to let us drill because you use a lot of oil. We now don't have to do that. We can now move away from that. As far as the numbers that we've been looking at today, and I appreciate those who pointed out, the electric bus life cycle cost, 1.1, is less than diesel and less than diesel hybrid. Even if you assume that PSTA itself purchases the charging infrastructure, that makes your life cycle cost 3.3% higher than a diesel bus and still less than a diesel hybrid. So it's certainly in the ballpark. And that is when you advertise that over the 9 buses that charging station could use. But there is really, and the price of buses purchased in subsequent years would indeed continue to be at that same level because that is a one-time expense that you would have for a place like St. Petersburg. So there's a lot of new excitement, there's a lot of new enthusiasm, and I think this would also be a great thing for PSTA. PSTA itself has not talked to the community, to my knowledge, about this initiative, about the possibility of this initiative. Once you do, I think it would be the greatest thing that you could possibly do to show leadership in this community, particularly working with Duke Energy, to show that there's a new path that we're taking and providing a new quality of service for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I
Yes.
just get one quick question?
Yes.
Mr. Compton?
Yes.
For 9 buses is one of those, that $500,000 number that we're talking about, is that for the 9 buses at a time? So that if we get to the 10th bus, then we have to do another $500,000? Is that my understanding?
Do we have an answer?
Ms. Morsher's probably knows
Yeah.
that.
I don't want you to get too fixated on that 9 number.
Yeah, that's an estimate.
Okay.
Because because it really depends on the service plan.
Right.
So if you have a longer route and you have to have a bus wait there 10 minutes in order to charge up before it goes, then you have to time all your buses right, and then you only have 60 minutes in an hour. So you could only use 6 buses an hour on that, and that may only be one route, or it also fixes other things for you. And so if that is a maximum, perhaps, if you don't have to charge your buses every hour, right? Because you would have some that would do every 2 hours.
Okay, right.
So it really is the service plan. The other thing is that I have seen these models that Proterra has put together, and not all the buses will last the whole day in the way that we have run our service plan. So you could need, for a particular route, an additional bus in order to run that service all day. And so it really is particular to the routes. So I would caution going too high.
That's what I was trying, as we're getting all this analytical stuff together, we're just trying to understand that better. Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Thanks.
Commissioner Johnson, do you have something?
I had a comment, but not a question.
Okay.
The 3 things that I put down here is, we said that diesel versus hybrid, the hybrids are only 90K more over the entire lifetime.
Yes.
But in the initial cost, the cash flow cost is, I think it's,
222.
yeah. So that's the cash flow
That's the cash flow
challenge
issue.
that we
Yeah.
have to get through to the next 5 years. Now, there's a whole new thing after 5 years. The other thing is that the MPO-STP program is restricted. When I heard the MPO discussion, it wasn't because that they didn't want to give that money to us because we had maxed our millage. It was because they had already designated that funds for other projects. So I'm not sure that if we were at the 0.75, that would automatically trigger that.
No.
And then I think that the one thing that's persuasive on being flexible here is that we have three independent variables. One is whether Duke comes in and helps us. The other one is whether we get the no-low grant. And then the other one is the possibility of the county for the DP funds. So the one thing that I've pretty much decided so far on is I like having the flexibility of, depending on which one of these dominoes falls, to be able to do that without having to go through this again with the board. So.
Just one thing on the VP, Brad has submitted a request for, is it full 589?
Yes.
So that request has been submitted to the county.
Yes, and I'm not sure exactly if it's like a database you have, but
It's online and it's a.
Commissioner Long's assistant verified to me yesterday that it was on
Okay.
it was on the list.
And it's open to the public for public
Yeah.
project recommendations. Okay.
But I confirmed yesterday that it's on the list.
Okay. Thank you.
Officially submitted.
Yeah, my impression is that the Proterra buses will go 80 miles. And this is kind of what Cassandra was talking about, is some of these buses have got to go more than 80 miles. So we're talking about, I mean, what is the average length of our buses? What do they run? Do they run more than 80 miles? So that if you've got an 80-mile bus, it takes, we're not going to be able to run it for as long as we want on the route.
The average today is more of our 210 buses is more than 80 miles a day.
And it would come up to, and it,
We can compare, but that's what we're proposing to operate these on a on a circular route in downtown St. Petersburg where the buses operate less than 80 miles. Not on the US 19, which goes from Gulfport to Tarpon, which is
So that these would have a very basically limited amount that we could use them until we get to a point where we get batteries that'll last 100 or
But we
Or
can't use
you
it.
have a
Charge,
Or
but
an in-route charger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the argument is that even if we can't use them on all the routes, any route we can use them on will be environmentally beneficial and actually less cost for the officer. So we don't have to run on all the routes, so that's the idea. Anyone else? Chair.
You know, I do like a sustainability policy, and I do like I think we're headed in the right direction in terms of thinking about how to improve the overall fuel economy of the fleet. I just wish that we could do a little bit better than 0.1% increase. And I'm wondering if there's a way, any other way to get that number higher. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm looking at this. So I guess it's just a comment that I think on one hand, I think it's the right thing for this board to do, to set a policy where we look at setting improvements of overall goals, and it preserves some flexibility year by year with how we get there. And in fact, ironically, it seems like, as you all know, I used to work for the National Sierra Club for about 7 years, and I worked on corporate average fuel economy standards, and I lobbied our U.S. senators to pass a stronger CAFE standard. And we weren't as impressed with responses of people who were trying to greenwash or automakers who pulled out, one green car. They have their whole gas guzzling fleet, pulled one highly fuel efficient car of some little tiny car and used that to say they were environmental. We didn't buy it. It seems like greenwashing. It seems like a weak symbolic act. And now I feel like we're getting credit for looking at symbolically purchasing an electric bus, and we're not really getting credit for looking at policies we're trying to change. So that's something I'm wrestling with. But I'd feel better about it if I felt like our actual fuel economy goal was maybe a little bit higher or better than 0.1%. So
It's a tenth of a mile.
or 1/10 of a mile.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yeah, and I think if we went to all electric and all small buses, those are both at 6 miles a gallon, both, right? I mean, is that what we're?
Electric.
No, like.
Small or hybrid, small and hybrid are 6.
Small hybrids, excuse me. So, yeah, I certainly appreciate your comment. Gosh, I was listening to what you were saying and going down a different path, so I kind of forgot what I was going to ask, so I'll have to come back to that. Oh, I know what it was. On action part A, it says PSTA 5 or fewer. Are we also doing the smaller buses in that action A, the 10?
Yes, it's recommended that the 5 that we buy would be 35 feet instead of 40.
Right.
To replace 40-foot buses with 35s.
But the smaller
Connector
replacement of the
buses.
connector buses?
The connector bus will have to go next month because the FDOT grant would. The CIP has the money for smaller connector type bus replacements, but we don't have a contract for that, so we'll have to go, that'll be next month with that award.
Oh, okay, so that's not, I thought we were doing that all today, so.
You would be approving to replace those connector buses with the vote this month on the CIP, but technically you'll have another vote. Sorry about that. I was hoping to have one all-encompassing, but it'll be next month to award a contract to whoever FDOT assigns the contract to for those small buses.
Okay, but what we're approving here today, and does include replacement of those 10.
Yeah. Those, the connector buses and two of our smaller, older, regular buses with 10 of those shuttle buses, in addition to the 5 Gillig heavy-duty buses, will be 35 feet instead of 40.
Subject to all the things that we talked about, maybe changing that 5.
Yeah, but even if we get the electric buses we would buy would be shorter than 40.
If we did get those 5 electric buses, are we going to have to be saving some capital this year? If we get the 5 electric buses,
Yeah.
the grant money?
That has a match.
Does that have a
Well,
match?
it likely will have a match, I
It
guess.
has a match at the diesel price.
So it'll be close then, the match?
Yeah.
Wash,
Yeah.
like, okay.
So if we got the full nominal grant, would that pay for 2 electric buses, or would it be, if I pay for 5 electric?
We applied for 5 and said, we'll take 2. And the federal government might come back and say you get 1, or they might say you get none, or they might say you get 5.
So if they say 5, we get the 5 to replace the ones that we need this year?
Yes. Yeah.
And the money required to match would be comparable to our diesel purchase if we did
Yes.
it ourselves.
Yeah.
And there's a charge.
When-
And we applied for the chargers too.
Yeah.
That's
All
right.
right. Okay, so we're looking for a recommendation that we're going to bring to the full board, correct? In this?
Yeah.
All right, so do we have a consensus here on what we want to do? We've talked about a half a dozen different choices, and I'm not sure that we have everything nailed down. Yes.
And just for clarification, the planning committee's going to vote on this directly after performance management votes and adjournments.
Okay. All right. So, so we're talking about a vote by
Finance committee members? which
Finance
is-
Committee, and then you guys are going to have a separate vote.
After
Yeah.
your
Okay,
adjournment, right.
right, okay. All right, so Finance Committee, do I have a recommendation here?
I recommend we propose this to the board.
Second,
All right.
the staff recommendation.
Yeah. Okay, now, and we're talking about diesel buses as opposed to hybrid or electric at this point, right? Five diesel buses.
With the caveat.
With the caveat that if in fact we get some grants, then we'll move forward with that
We would move
to devise how we did it. 2 or 3 electrics, whatever it is, come in. Okay, all right. All in favor of that?
Aye.
I'm nay. As I've said before, feel that this is not in the best interest of the environment. It's not the best interest of providing the region with the kind of vision that is needed. I would be willing to go with hybrid diesels for 90,000 more over the lifetime, but I vote no with diesels. Okay? Anything else that we need to do on our committee? Okay, we're adjourned. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm
Chair.
sorry to hold you up.
No, that was good conversation, well worth it. So we'll bring the planning committee to order for June 15th. Mr. Compton, did your comments carry over to us, or did you want to?
Yes, I think that covers it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Compton. So let's vote on the action item 2A on our agenda. Is there a motion from a planning committee member for items A, B, and C? We can take it together or separately.
I move we adopt A, B, and C as presented.
Is there a second? Okay, that's for lack of a second. Is there another motion? Jordan, yourself, Samantha, Mark, Patty's the alternate.
I'm not.
No, you're not. She's one of the.
There's an alternate.
She's alternate. Okay, maybe, am I?
She's correct. She's not.
Yeah. So Mark Knight, Samantha, Pat, and Darden, and myself are the members. Patty's the alternate.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Did I hear you state earlier an indication that you would support the purchase of 3 hybrids and 2 electrics? Did I hear that
Yes.
correctly?
And the reason is, and Commissioner Barker and I independently scribble out the same thing. If we're talking a 15-year life, a $90,000 difference is $6,000 a year between hybrids and diesels. And if my math is right, the hybrids are 30% lower in emissions. And I think emissions do matter. Sea level rise, we're ground central. For that amount of money, I think we ought to be going hybrids instead of diesels. So I wouldn't support staff's recommendation for that one point.
Mr. Chair, your recommendation on the 2 electrics contingent upon receipt of some other funds, or?
I'm going to push as hard as I can, and my read, and I hope Commissioner Eggers goes back and watches the video, because he did say it was good use of EP funds. But I think I'm going to push very hard for it. I can't speak for other commissioners, but it was well received. It fits into several categories that we set out: transportation, innovative projects, alternative energy. You know, I'm optimistic that the county commission will support that as a
Fantastic. Me too. So, is your recommendation to buy 5 hybrids and then contingent upon receipt of some other funds, replace some of those hybrids with electrics, or to go 3 and 2 regardless of the other funding?
3 hybrids, 2 diesels.
3 hybrids, 2 electrics regardless of any other funding, or is it 5 hybrids and then contingent upon receipt of other fundings, replacing 2 of those hybrids with electrics?
That would be
I would
fine.
move that we purchase 5 hybrids, with 2 of those being contingent upon our pursuit of BP money, county BP money, and
Or other
the
federal
Lono
sources.
grants or other funds.
I would second that, but leave the no-no grants out of that, because I think that would be an addition. Unless
Okay,
you're substituting the
I won't.
hybrids for the electric, or for the no-low. Is that what you're saying?
I'll keep the Lono out of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have
It's cleaner.
yeah.
I'll second that, yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Commissioner Rice?
I move that we purchase 3 hybrid electric buses. Excuse me, 5 hybrid electric buses. As we pursue extra monies available for 2 electric buses that could possibly convert 2 of those purchases if we get the money to do it.
For the capital
For the-
infrastructure, for the charters.
Okay, so if you got Lona for 5 buses, you would buy 5 electric buses.
Well, we left that out.
No, yeah.
Just 2, okay.
So how would this work out as far as what we have to pay in 2017? What are the 5 hybrids going to cost us, and what are the 5 diesels going to cost?
You want to speak to that?
We will pretend that we are like that congressional budget office and do a forecast as best as we can humanly do on whatever vote you choose to decide, and we'll forecast by next week the impact of your vote. I don't know, but
So 697 times 7 is like 42, and or 5 times 697 is 3,004. So there's a sizable difference. And how are we going to manage that in our capital budget? There's 120,000 times 5. That's
it's roughly $1 million more because of upfront cost.
yeah.
200K times 5.
We take that out of reserve and we save fuel costs
Save
over the
some
next
fuel
5
costs,
years. Or the next 15
Well, we got to pay it right now.
And we have done that.
We have the funds, but they'll draw down in a different way than is on that spreadsheet that will try our best to compute by next week.
Okay, so you might run out of funds in
2020?
2020 instead of 20.
I don't believe that projection anyway. Well, I don't, I mean, not the way that, not the way we projected the FT fund.
Again, a $6,000 a year difference over the 15 years. Bottom line, the 1219.
90 divided by.
Yeah, 90 divided by 15. So is 6K a year going to determine our future one way or the other? Either we have a capital problem or we don't. And I don't think 6K a year is going to be the determining factor. You actually don't believe it?
I really
Okay,
do.
so I better keep going. So we have a motion and a second. Any other questions on the motion? And those are the only changes, otherwise A, B, and C were supported. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. I know Commissioner Gerard has to leave. We still have a quorum. Ms. Patty, still here?
She's still here.
Okay, so we still have a quorum. So let's move on to action items 4A, approval of the